Okay, so let's, here's my model that I'm going to mirror. It's made it for another class, and I need to delete half of it so that I can, because it's already been mirrored. So I'm going to go to my front view, and this is good. You may have to do this for your own model before you mirror it, because you've been working on one side, but it doesn't mean the other side isn't at least partially there. Okay, so I'm going to delete this piece up here because I'm not going to model it at all. And you'll see that I've got these faces sticking out the other side, and I'm in my orthographic front view. So I need to delete these faces. And then I'm going to navigate around, and you want to be really careful when you're deleting stuff or before you do this, that you've done it the right way. Okay? So I'm deleting anything that was on the border. Okay, so with that done, now I'm going to say move this off the side a little bit just to kind of mess it up, because ideally this center line of your model would be lined up with the center line of the grid. Okay, and in fact we want to force that to happen before we bother to mirror it. So you don't have to do this step. This is me just messing up my model. Okay, so the first thing you would want to do is kind of just move this in to the center line. Okay, and then let's say you have some vertices on the edge here that are messed up. They're not in line with the rest of the center of your mesh. So you would want to make those get in line also. And so what I like to do is I go into edge mode and I double click one of these border edges, and that will select around the entire model. Okay, and then I like to press Control and then right click and go to vertices. And that's going to change my selection to vertices instead of edges. And then I like to go to my scaling tool, and I will grab it, the handle that makes the most sense. Hopefully it's the x-axis scaling handle, and I'm going to scale it to the center over and over and over again until Maya gets confused. And you can know that it's confused, like right now, because when I click that handle and drag on it, it's not moving anymore. So that's Maya's way of saying it's flat already. Leave me alone. Okay, so with that done, now I want to snap it to this border, to the center grid line. So to do that, I need to click on the X handle, the red handle, and that will turn it yellow. That's how I know that's the active handle. And then if I hold down X, then the center cursor, the center of my manipulator turns to a circle. That means you've activated magnet mode. And if you hold down X, it means you've activated magnet mode for the grid. So you can snap stuff to the grid. Okay, so that was real quick. That's all it takes. So I held down X, and then I middle mouse clicked at the origin of the scene. Okay, so now I can guarantee that all this stuff here on the center is perfectly flat, and it's also perfectly in the middle of the scene, and that's very important. Okay, so we're over halfway done. Okay, so the first half is just precautions. Now, to actually do the mirroring, what you'll want to do is just Control D to duplicate the mesh, and then you want to go into your channel box and change your scale X to a -1. And that's going to move it, a copy of it, to the other side. Okay? Now, you can see that my mirroring actually didn't do exactly what I wanted. That's kind of funny. So let's go back and figure out why. Okay, so I undid until before I duplicated it. And I'm thinking the reason that it mirrored funny is because you see my manipulator, it's actually not at the center of the origin, even though the geometry is. So to change that, all I have to do is hold down D and then hold down X and middle mouse click at the origin of the scene, and it's going to move what's called the pivot point of this object to the origin of the scene. Okay, now I can Control D, duplicate it, and set the scale X to a -1. And if I select them both, you can see that on the border it's not overlapping at all, and that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, now with both halves selected, all I have to do is go to Mesh, Combine, and that's going to make them a single object. Okay, but I still have vertices in the center here. So if I were to go to vertex mode and then turn on heads up display poly count, it will show me what I have selected. Okay, so if I drag select, if I press 4 on my keyboard, I can go to the wire mesh mode. If I drag select over a vertex that's on the center line of my model, it will tell me how many vertices I have selected. Actually, it'll tell you that no matter where you select. But if I do it on the center line, I can see that I actually have 2 vertices selected, not just 1. Well, that's because there was 2 halves. And so there's 2 sets of vertices in the center. That's what we need to get rid of. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my object mode and select the object, and then I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, Merge. Now, because these vertices were lying directly on top of each other already, it will have merged the center line vertices. Now, take a look at the verts count right here. I have 1,086 of them right now. If I undo, there were 1,126 of them before I did my merge. So to redo, I hit Shift S and it redoes it, and I'm back down to 1,086. Okay, now let's say it didn't merge all this stuff in the center how we wanted it to. Okay, we've got something weird going on. Like there was too big of a gap for them to be combined or something like that. Well, when you do a merge on a polygon, it introduces a piece of history. And that we can edit this history after the fact by going into the input section of the channel box and clicking on Poly Merge Vert. And it'll have a number after it. That's not as important, but you want to pick the most recent one. It'll be in the top of this list. And you can adjust this distance attribute to your heart's content. So if I increase this to say 10, it doesn't like me now. Okay, so I increase it to 0.5. Well, it's merged almost my entire mesh to a single point. Well, that's obviously not what I wanted. So I want to adjust this distance attribute to something that is small, that's just barely big enough to merge all my center line vertices. So at 0,